Hello, everyone. We are back to the presentation. For those who didn't see part one, essentially, I'm developing a theory that the leadership of the world is walking us through the foundation that has also been laid out for us through the tarot. I believe that this foundation shows how empires and power rises and falls, and I am showing that we've gone through every step up until the card that we're approaching now, which is the Devil card. If you're going to be watching this presentation, I do highly recommend that you start from part one because this is something that needs to be understood in order. If you're seeing this for the first time and you're starting here, there's a lot that you're going to be missing. In the first portion of this, we went through the beginning foundation part, and we also went from the aces to the fives. The aces are the spark, the twos is the separation, the three is coming back together because, again, in order to take power, you need to cause a problem and be the solution for the problem or provide the solution for the problem. That's why we see spark, split, back together. Then we see four. The foundation is built from that. So every time it's spark, split, back together, it's another pillar in the foundation that they're building, right? So then once the foundation is built in the fours, it's tested with the fives, conflict, tension. And then it's like a layered foundation, right? Think of if they're trying to build a really high pedestal so that they can put the system on it and represent the system as if the system was God. Like, you're not able to opt out. This is just the way life is. That's how high they're trying to get the pedestal, so the pedestal can hold the system and the system can hold the illusion of being God. Okay, so we're going into the sixes. The sixes is the phase of recalibration and strategic stabilization. So now that we've built the foundation has been tested, now we move forward, right? And then after we get to the end, we go into another layer, and then we go into another layer. You don't want to get they don't want to get too many steps ahead and realize, oh no, something way back there isn't going to work. But if there's already a foundation laid on it, then you have to rip up the whole foundation to replace the pillar. They don't want to do that. That's why we see it done like this. Essentially, each journey from an ace to a 10 is a pillar. It starts with the spark, goes all the way to completion. Starts with a spark, goes all the way to completion. Sometimes it's the completion of giving us knowledge, giving us data, giving us like AI and stuff like that, right? Sometimes it's a burden, like war, like false flags, like everything else, right? Sometimes it's movement, right? And sometimes it's finance or stability, or sometimes even community, right? They take an idea or a piece of what they want to build as this foundation that they want to essentially build all the way up to the sky. They take each piece, each pillar, each layer from the ace to the 10, put it in place. That way it's created, it's been tested, and it's solid. So they know they can continue to stack and build this pillar that they will then place the system on, and they will then also be like the mascots for the system, hence placing themselves on the pedestal. However, the system is the foundation of it. Once it's up there, the system is the foundation of the top of the pillar, and then the people on top can be replaced, but the system cannot. Once the system is locked in, it's essentially like quicksand. Right. It's like they want the system to replace God. We need to stop it before it gets there. This is what I hope to show you is the foundation of, we have their playbook. We just need to know how to decode it. If we can understand that we have their playbook, we can also understand how to build back better and how to unbuild what they're trying to build as a trap. So now you're caught up, and we're going into the sixes. Again, the phase of recalibration and strategic stabilization. If the fives were the pressure and fracture, the sixes are the response. So foundation, test it, now what? Six is adjustment, rebalancing, attempted correction. After conflict, systems either soften or they stabilize in a more structured way. Why is that? Either five tested the foundation and it's solid, or it tested the foundation and we need to remold some things. Okay, if the foundation was tested and it's solid, It stabilizes in a more structured way. What does that mean? They put the pillars of that piece. They laid the foundation, they tested it, it's strong. So they're putting that final layer of like, I don't know, like it makes it shiny, or it makes it like they're putting that, right? And then they're putting the glue for the next layer. So if it's tested and it's good, it stabilizes in a more structured way. If it's tested and they're like, oh, you know what? However, we unrolled that gave the public a little bit too much of an ability to fight back. We need to make sure that we take away a little bit more of their power. We see a replay so that they can relay either the pillars or the foundation before they build on top of it. That's why some things we see repeating, they wanted our response to be less loud, or they wanted our response to be proof that they have one over on us, right? It's like when we see things where it's clearly a test of the foundation, but then it kind of eases up and then it comes again, that would be an example of the foundation not being poured the way they really wanted it to, and them softening it to remold it and then trying it again. So 6 isn't always moving forward. It's the difference between either, yes, it moves forward because the foundation was good, or they need to remix the cement and re-pour it because the foundation didn't lay the way that they wanted it to. And again, they need to lay the foundation and then they build on top of it. So if this wasn't good, but they never checked it and they got all the way up to here, going all the way from the ace to the 10 is checking and double checking their work, okay? Because you don't want to get all the way up to here, where's my hand? All the way up to here and realize this foundation never laid right. Now you got to knock this whole thing down. And in an instant where, or in a situation where this pedestal is meant to be a power grab, you don't want to knock half of the foundation down in front of the people that you're trying to take power from, because then they're going to be like, do you really know what you're doing? Hence what we see in the government right now. But that was meant to fall because they're not the real ones in power, allegedly, my opinion. So we go into the 6 of Swords. In the 6 of Swords, we see the managed transition and narrative reset. The archetype here is moving from turbulence into calmer waters. Structurally, this looks like leadership shifts framed as renewal, policy reframing without full reversal. Again, that one, the policy reframing without full reversal, would be an example of remixing the concrete and laying it so that they can make it the way that they wanted it to. Public messaging about lessons learned, institutional rebranding, and soft narrative resets. The 6 of Swords does not destroy the boat, it changes the direction of travel. If a surveillance trajectory exists, this stage refines it rather than removing it. Again, is this the look we were going for? Is this the structure we were going for? Is this foundation shakeable, or all the pillars good and the foundation laid correctly? There's no bumps, there's no way for it to crack. Is everything good, or do we need to remix it? Because if we need to remix it, we need to remix it before going into the 7s, because the 7s is going to defend the decision we made in the 6. By we, I mean them. The 7s defends the decisions that they make in the 6. Then we have the 6 of Wands. This is public legitimization and visible wins. The archetype here is victory parade and recognition. Indicators here are government or institutional claims of success. Kind of like right now when they're saying that everything is getting great and we're like in a world war. Crime reduction announcements, security threat prevention headlines, public celebration of stabilization, and narrative emphasis on we handled it. They love that one. I don't even need to explain because they love that one so much. This stage restores confidence. The public sees proof that centralized measures worked. Remember, if you saw the first one, I said even the good things are a setup for this pillar. This would be an example of the good things actually being part of testing the foundation to make sure that it's sturdy. Basically, in some instances, for example, can we piss off the public and then instantly reel them back in and make them desire our help again very quickly, and how quickly? Those would be a type of test in this category. This stage restores confidence. The public sees proof that centralized measures work. This strengthens institution authority. Six of Pentacles, we have conditional relief and controlled support. The archetype here is giving and receiving and structured aid. The structural signs are the stimulus programs. Look at when the waves of these came, okay? It came clearly after a 5 moment because it was to test if they can get us back on their side after hitting us with a 5, because the 5 is the test of the foundation. Now the 6 is, hey, will you like me again? Will you like me again so we can continue to move forward? Did the foundation we built work to fool you? Allegedly. Stimulus programs, subsidies tied to eligibility metrics, expanded digital benefit distribution, means tied to relief, financial support tied to compliance frameworks. Here, think we created the problem so that we can come in and provide you with a solution so that you like us again after we just did a 5 on you and caused a conflict or a tension. Relief becomes system integrated. Assistance flows through centralized channels. Support reinforces the system rather than bypassing it. AKA, we need you to need us. We need you to want to need us, essentially. Then we have the Six of Cups. This is nostalgia and emotional softening. The archetype here is returning to familiarity. At this stage, media nostalgia cycles, cultural longing for simpler times, public emotional fatigue easing, institutional tone softening, and comfort narratives returning. What is this one? This is, hey, we just hit you with a 5. Now we want you to long for when times were simpler again so we can offer you some form of convenience, and you'll be more prone to take it because you're just really sick of the crap that we're starting on purpose to make you sick of the crap so that you are more easily complying with what we want to put in place that will then defend in the 7s. The Six of Cups stabilizes emotion. It calms the nervous system. People begin to feel normal again, aka, okay, you know what? This seems convenient to give up a little bit more of our rights to the government just so we can get back to how it was a couple steps ago. Yes, of course, but they're the ones who created the problem so that we would feel that way. They hit us with the 5 so that they could put that 6 there and say, here, do you still like us? And how do we move forward from this? And we'll give you a little bit of something if you give us a little bit more of your rights. For the sake of convenience. For the sake of convenience to move through the problem that they created so that we would long for convenience. The sixes are the smoothing phase. Conflict cools, relief flows, leadership claims competence. We know what we're doing. Trust us. Well, of course you do, because you just created the 5. You created the tension and the problem to test the platform that you built. So yeah, of course you obviously already have planned the solution that you're going to come in with, because that's why you created the problem in the first place, so you could come in with a solution. So of course it's very easy for them to act like they know what they're doing, because they do. They created the problem and the solution, and they're just acting it out in front of us so that we are more easily submissive to picking up on basically crumbs that they're giving us so that they can take more of our rights and give us a little bit of convenience or a little bit of giving us back what they took away that they shouldn't have taken away in the first place, like our freedoms and our rights. If the system intends to deepen centralization, it will use this period to refine quietly. If reform is the path, decentralization happens here. Again, is the concrete good, or do we need to remix it? Because we can't go forward and defend in the 7s what we aren't sure is ready in the 6s. The 6s determine whether hierarchy becomes entrenched or corrected. Again, remixing or the foundation's good. Then we're moving to the 7s. If it's not good, sometimes we might need to go back to the 2, resplit things, re-put them back together, and reform the concrete. Sometimes we only need to go back to the 3. Maybe we need to add something else, then pour into the foundation, then test it again. Maybe we just need to go back and re-pour the foundation. Maybe we didn't put enough. Maybe we need to add some extra cement. Re-pour the foundation, test it again. Then we come to the 6s. We're not going past the 6s until that foundation is solid. When we go past the sixes, it means we're ready to defend it because we know that it's solid enough to stay on that pedestal long term. Okay, so the Six of Swords is managed transition and policy reset. Some examples of this are Biden signing executive orders reversing key Trump policies, 2021. US formally rejoins Paris Climate Agreement, 2021. WHO declares end of COVID-19 in 2023. CDC lifts mask mandate for fully vaccinated Americans, 2021. US ends longest war with withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Then we have the Six of Wands, public legitimization and declared success. We have the White House totes job growth as unemployment falls to 3.5% in 2022. Inflation cools for sixth straight month in 2023. NATO shows united front as Finland officially joins alliance in 2023. FDA grants full approval to Pfizer COVID vaccine in 2021. Violent crime falls in major U.S. cities, new data shows, in 2023. Then we have the Six of Pentacles, which is structured relief and conditional support. Congress passes 1.9 trillion COVID relief bill in 2021. Student loan forgiveness plan announced by Biden administration in 2022. Expanded child tax credit lifts millions out of poverty in 2021. EU approves massive recovery fund for post-pandemic economy in 2020. U.S. extends unemployment benefits amid economic recovery in 2020. Then we have the Six of Cups with nostalgia and emotional softening. Travel rebounds as countries reopen borders to tourists in 2022. Look where we're at now in 2026. That's 4 years. The entire world is on fire. Anyway, Americans return to offices after pandemic disruptions in 2022. Concerts and festivals make full return after lockdowns in 2022. Holiday travel surges to pre-pandemic levels in 2022, and consumer confidence rises as pandemic fears fade in 2023. That completes the sixes. Now we go into the sevens. The sevens is the phase of testing and resistance. If the sixes were smoothing and recalibration, the sevens are tension under the surface. Sevens are testing, challenge, doubt, pushback. This is where people start asking harder questions, aka, as I said, this is where they defend. We've tested this foundation. We know it's going to work, so go ahead. Now we're accepting public tests because we know that we've foundationally got this in place to where it can withstand. They want us to challenge after the six. We often think, oh, we're fighting back, we're scaring them. No, they literally have it in the playbook that we must either give or not give. They need to give us time and space to respond or not, because that is what the sevens is. Do we need to defend this? Because if we need to, we will. We're testing it live, giving the public the opportunity to try and break this apart. Why? Because if they've built this foundation, they've tested it, and they feel it's solid, and it gets to the 7 and it absolutely crumbles, then at the 8, they can walk away. Oh, that's not going to work. Let's take it out the foundation, because you don't want to get anything to the 10 and get it set in place. When it gets to the 10, it means they're ready to build the next layer. So if it gets to the 7, this is pass fail. If they feel as though a piece of this foundation has been laid properly, but it gets to the 7 and the public's rebuttal or if the public's able to find out stuff we weren't supposed to find out, or if our response actually makes another part of their plan slower, they may scrap it and take it out of the pillar. Because, okay, when we get to there, we might have a weak spot here. We don't even want to try that. So 8 allows them to walk away from anything that did not withstand the test of the 7s. And the test of the 7s only comes after they are confident that the foundation they laid is able to be upheld and will work. So that's where we get to the 7s. Okay, so the Seven of Wands, we have defensive posture and institutional guarding. The archetype here is holding higher ground and defending position. Structurally, this looks like institutions publicly defending policies. They want to see our response. Go ahead, study us, fact check us, question us. We want to see where our holes are or flaws are so we know if this piece of the foundation needs to be scrapped or not. Increased moderation or enforcement actions. So, okay, maybe the public starts responding in a little bit. Let's try and shut that down. See if they retreat or go harder. It's a testing of how will we interact with the foundation that they laid confidently. Because it never gets to the sevens until it passes the six. And the six is where they say, you know what, I think this is good. Let's go through the final test of making sure that the public can't shine too much light on whatever the darkness is that we need for this piece of the foundation. Leaders framing cities as destabilizing forces, Minnesota. Regulatory tightening in response to dissent, and legal defenses of expanded authority. The system feels challenged. It does not expand here. It fortifies. So again, 7 is not about adding anything new, is not about expanding, is not about a ripple. 7 is about how hard can we stand here and allow the public to knock at this wall so that we can see for sure if it's going to fall down or not. And if it falls down, fine. It's only fallen down in that one section because everything below that has already been tested and can withstand the 7. So, like, let's say we got 3 layers here, right? For example. We got 3 layers, for example, right? These 2 on the bottom have already been tested by the 7. They've been knocked at as hard as we can. They're not coming off, right? So if they lay this one and this one is going through the test of the 7s and we're able to take that off, okay, we're still not taking these 2 off, and they know that because they've already been tested. So all they need to do is scrape away this concrete and relay a new foundation. Are we stopping them? No. Not in this case, right? Not here, right? But this is how it works, right? If God forbid we shine too much light on something and they're like, you know what, that may be a weak spot in the foundation, let's remove that. Fine. The public can go back and hit it this again. We're not knocking it down. How do they know that? Because it's already gone through the test of the 7s. They've already defended this and have marked it as structurally significant enough to stay in place. And they know that we have tested it too, and we weren't able to knock it down, so to speak. Okay, so the 7 of Swords, we have trust erosion and shadow behavior. The archetype here is secrecy, strategy, and evasion. I know a lot of people reference how they need to tell us what they're doing. They need to tell us what they're doing, right? Sure, yes, because it's part of this. It's the 7. The stage of the 7 is them needing to show us, look at this, how will you react, because we need you to test it. So yes, they need to show us what they're doing because it needs to get through the point of the 7. And if it doesn't, then they can discard it in the 8. Okay, so trust erosion, shadow behavior, secrecy, strategy, evasion, indicators, whistleblower events. That's why we have controlled leaks, because it's the 7s unfolding. We need to tell you something to see how you react, to see if you can knock down that part of our wall or not. Data leak revelations, surveillance disclosures, investigative journalism exposing hidden coordination, and public suspicion increasing. Because they want it to, they need to test the foundation that's been built. This is where hiding mechanisms surface. Even if exaggerated in public imagination, the perception of secrecy damages trust. The narrative becomes, what else don't we know? For example, Epstein. I actually was inspired by the censoring of the Epstein files for the cover of this presentation. Trying to be very direct with my symbolism because so are they. And if we can see it clearly and know what we're seeing clearly and know how to put it together through pattern recognition and our intuition, then we can dismantle the playbook that they're using to trap us to set ourselves free. Seven of Pentacles. Public patience wears thin. Archetype here is waiting and evaluating investment. At this stage, economic fatigue grows. Long-term policy effects become visible, and people question whether the trade-offs were worth it. Again, they need us testing the foundation. Taxpayer scrutiny increases and budget debates intensify. Can we still get the people to follow the law and not revolt when we piss them off and then show them what we're doing? Quite literally. Because it needs to pass the test of the seven. Because they can't have anything later where, oh, I didn't see that the public would figure out how that connects and refuse to comply. And now we have a bigger problem that wasn't in alignment with our plan. That's why everything's tested. Create, separate, spark, create the problem and solution foundation of that piece, test it, have the public test it. Did I do this one? Citizens assess whether the system delivered what is promised. This is a quiet but powerful test. I need water. Okay, Seven of Cups. Confusion and narrative overload. The archetype here is illusion, too many choices, and unclear reality. Think Epstein. Overload. Let's just give them everything at once, and by the time they work through it, we'll be able to see how much they're able to fight back when they're just absolutely overwhelmed and exhausted. It's a different test of the sevens. Illusion, too many choices, unclear reality. The structural signs: information saturation, AI generated content blurring authenticity. Again, it's also why AI got super huge right before Epstein files came out, because they wanted to test what we would think about how much of it's AI, how much of it's not, so that they can lay the foundation for the next one they're going to be laying, which is the Great Deception, which is the making us believe all the stuff that they're going to be showing us is happening extraterrestrially when it's really just them putting on a big puppet show to try and scare us. Why? Because they need us questioning what's real. Why? Seven of Cups. Deep fake concerns, contradictory expert opinions, and competing global crises dominating headlines. Reality feels unstable. People struggle to discern what is real, exaggerated, or manipulated. Confusion weakens coordinated action. If we look at the sevens are scrutiny. The public questions, leaks surface, confusion rises, institutions defend themselves. This is the integrity test. Is it really as structurally strong as we believed that it was before the public had the opportunity to dissect it and fight back? That's quite literally what the sevens are. Were we right that that part of the foundation is ready to go? And our last test is the public, because the public is the opponent. The last test is the public because the public is the opponent. If the systems are transparent and accountable, they stabilize here. If not, escalation happens in the eights. Again, you walking away or you walking forward. You're walking in the eights because the sevens showed you which direction. So is it good or is it not good? The eights are acceleration. Movement speeds up, reinforcement intensifies, or reform becomes rapid. Yes, no, forward, backwards. Good, not good. The Seven of Wands is institutional defense and public pushback. The examples of this are Supreme Court hears challenge to Biden's student loan forgiveness plan in 2023. Protesters rally against Israel's judicial overhaul in 2023. U.S. states sue over federal vaccine mandate in 2021. French government survives no confidence vote after pension reform in 2023. Lawmakers grill tech CEOs over content moderation policies in 2021. Seven of Swords is leaks and surveillance exposure. NSA contractor Edward Snowden charged in U.S. after leaks in 2013. WikiLeaks releases trove of CIA hacking documents in 2017. Twitter files reveal international moderation debates in 2022. Pentagon leaks suspect arrested over classified documents in 2023. Facebook whistleblower says company puts profit over safety in 2021. Seven of Pentacles is public evaluation and economic patience test. Americans split on whether economy is improving in 2023. U.S. debt ceiling deal reached after weeks of standoff in 2023. Federal Reserve holds rates steady amid economic uncertainty in 2023. UK holds face continued cost of living pressure in 2024. Global growth forecast cut as inflation persists in 2023. We have the Seven of Cups information overload and reality blur. We have AI generated deepfake videos raise election concerns in 2024. Misinformation surges ahead of US midterm elections in 2022. ChatGPT sparks debate over AI's role in society in 2023. And Meta warns of foreign disinformation campaigns in 2023. Experts say generative AI will transform news and policies in 2023, which brings us into the eights. Okay, so we're going to go into the eights, which is the phase of acceleration and system entrenchment. If the sevens were testing and doubt, the eights are acceleration. Eight is momentum, compression, and things moving quickly. In any large-scale system shift, this is the phase where direction becomes clearer. Again, are we going forward or are we going to go back and take that piece off altogether? Eight of Wands is rapid policy movement and tech scaling. Archetype is fast movement and messages flying. Structurally, this looks like rapid rollout of new regulations, quick deployment of new tech infrastructure, AI integration accelerating across sectors, cross-border agreements signed quickly, and public policy cycles shortening. This one is when they're like, okay, this is good, but it's strong, it's ready to go, but we really need to move quickly to get the next layer up so that the public can't spend too much time trying to crack this layer. So yes, we know it's strong, but we don't want them paying too much attention to it because it will make the building of the next layer more difficult for us. That would be the Eight of Wands response. Things that would have taken years now happen in months. Speed reduces public scrutiny. Momentum favors those already in control. Speed. Think train, right? Think of if they make something happen so that they can put a policy on a train and then say, go, 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 and send the train to the next station. That would be the Eight of Wands. The Eight of Swords, perceived confinement and learned helplessness. Archetype is feeling trapped and mental restriction. The indicators here are widespread belief that systems are unavoidable, increased digital dependency, difficulty opting out of centralized services, public sentiment that there is no alternative, and reduced civic participation. The Eight of Swords is them saying, yeah, we're locking this one in and we're going to make everybody know this one's locked in. This is going to be a loud, in-your-face layer. It's locked in. There's nothing you can do about it. This is it. That would be the Eight of Swords response. This is psychological. Whether true or exaggerated, the perception of entrapment is powerful. It lowers resistance. Then we have the Eight of Pentacles, which is normalization through routine. The archetype here is repetitive work, craftsmanship, and system refinement. This stage looks like quiet optimization of surveillance tools, back-end AI refinement, automation of compliance systems, routine data harvesting becoming invisible, and integration of tracking into everyday apps. This is, yes, we got this layer in place and we need to make it active and going before we start to build on top of it or while we start to build on top of it. So this layer is in place, we've tested it, it's ready to go, but it's not going to go quietly. We need to remind you continuously that this layer is here because it makes the layers that we're going to build on top of this easier for us to put in place. place. If you constantly remember that layer 3 is there, when we get to layer 5 and you don't really want to listen to us, but you remember that layer 3 told you that it's easier to listen to us, maybe you'll make it a little easier for us to lay that upper layer because we kind of shut you up in this bottom layer. That's the Eight of Pentacles response. These are not dramatic announcements, it's just improvement. Efficiency increases and the system becomes ordinary. We get used to it, it becomes routine. That's the Eight of Pentacles. The Eight of Pentacles is when they laid a foundation that they need us to feel is normal but shouldn't be. They need to work down our resistance to viewing it as anything other than normal. That's the Eight of Pentacles. Okay, so the Eight of Cups is emotional withdrawal and internal migration. The archetype is walking away and disengaging. The signs include people disconnecting from traditional media, growth of alternative communities, digital detox movements, migration of decentralized platforms, and exit from institutional trust. This is the one they don't like. This is when they laid that foundation. They thought it was solid. The public got a hold of it and kicked it right off. The public saw through their lie. It wasn't a strong enough piece to leave in place and build on top of because it would cause everything above it to eventually potentially sink. So Eight of Cups, they don't like this one. This is when they realize, okay, we thought that was more solid than it actually was, and it wasn't able to get the reaction or the acceptance or the accepted delusion from the public that we thought it would, so we have to walk away. They do not like this Eight of Cups. This is defeat for them because this means that they were wrong. This means they built the foundation, they tested the foundation, they approved the foundation, and we got one over on them. They know like. Not everyone doubles down, some walk away. This creates parallel realities. Some people will believe in the system and have a hard time realizing that they were wrong. That can also apply to us with the Eight of Cups. So the eights are acceleration. Systems refine, policies move quickly. Dependency deepens, but the alternative pathways begin forming. The eights are directional. After this point, the path becomes clearer. The nines will reveal whether the acceleration leads to control, saturation, or collective reckoning. So the eight is them saying yes forward or no backwards. And if they say yes forward and then something happens after that, big problem for them. That's a true threat to the building of the pedestal that they then want to put the system on. The Eight of Wands, the rapid rollout and fast policy movement. Examples of this were OpenAI's ChatGPT sets record for fastest growing consumer app in history in 2023. European Union improves landmark AI Act in 2023. China rolls out digital yuan in expanded pilot across major cities in 2021. U.S. House passes bill that could back TikTok nationwide in 2024. WHO declares Mpox global health emergency in 2022. Then we have the Eight of Swords, which is perceived confinement and dependency. This is the digital divide, leaving millions without access to essential services in 2020. App stores remove Parler following Capitol riot in 2021. Twitter restricts access to news articles in dispute with publisher in 2023. Australia passes law forcing Google and Facebook to pay for news in 2021. Banking apps become primary way making Americans money in 2023. Eight of Pentacles is quiet optimization and institutional integration. Governments turn to AI to improve public services in 2023. Look how quickly we went from that to where we are in 2026. Facial recognition technology expands in U.S. airports in 2022. UK police expand live facial recognition trials in 2023. Amazon Web Service wins major government cloud contract in 2021. Banks increase use of AI for fraud detection in 2023. Then we have the Eight of Cups with it, which is withdrawal and alternative migration. The users flock to Signal and Telegram after WhatsApp privacy backlash in 2021. Mastodon Mastodon sees surge in signups amid Twitter turmoil in 2022. Americans report taking breaks from social media for mental health in 2022. Cryptocurrency adoption grows as some seek alternatives to traditional banking in 2021. Remote work spurs migration from major cities in 2020, which brings us into the nines. So just to go back through where we were so far, we have ACE, which is the spark, and we're putting something in place. Here's the spark. What's the first thing that we need to do? Because our goal is to take power. The first thing we need to do is walk in and create a problem, a division. That's where we see the twos. Then, since we created the problem, we now need to put things back together to say, ooh, look at us. We're great. Put us on the pedestal. That would be the threes. After the three things came back together, then we test, then we have that foundation that we put the pillars in place. That is a three, putting the pillars in place and getting that all lined up. Now the four is the foundation, right? So what did all of these pillars create when put together? Then we lay that foundation, right? Then five, we come in and test that foundation. Let's jump on it. Let's shake it. Is it really solid? Does it really work? Then we have the six. Okay, we're going to move forward now because we feel like, yes, that five withheld. So we're going to either go forward in this way or that way. Then after we do that, we're going to kind of show the public. Let's let them test it. Seven, let's see if they can break this down. After we determine if they can break it down or not, now we're at the eight. We're good or we're not? Now we come to the nine. The nine is the phase of saturation and psychological consequence. Keep in mind, we're one step away from the 10. The 10 is when that layer is in place and they start working on the next one. Well, not start working on, because they likely start working on the pieces during the previous layer or previous layers. However, like working on as an implementation of, because they can only do one layer at a time. Implementing, if we're following the structure of the layer, needs to be tested solid good before you build the next one, right? So the eights were acceleration. If the eights were acceleration, the nines are saturation. Nine is culmination. The system has matured. The consequences are visible. This is where pressure peaks internally before the tens externalize it. So this is like we're about to lay the, you know how like when you're making crafts, you can put like epoxy over it and it seals it in. Okay, so this is like we're about to lay that layer of seal. We need to make sure that if we do everything we can, that it's ready to go, essentially. We've tested everything that we possibly could to prepare. Now we're going to enact. But again, once we enact, this is the point where they're testing it knowing it's going to pass, right? The sevens were, what will the public do? Can they knock it over? The eights are, okay, we going forward or not? If they go forward with it into the nines, this is like, okay, now we need to actually do it, and it's going, right? Like it's going. They can still make adjustments in between the 9 and the 10, because the 10 is like, it's solid, it's in place. Any corrections would have to be made publicly to it, kind of thing. But the 9 is like, we're laying the sealant. We're mixing and preparing to lay the sealant. Okay, so we go into the 9 of Swords. This is the anxiety peak and mental overload. The archetype here is sleeplessness, worry, and fear spirals. Structurally, this looks like widespread anxiety about privacy and anonymity, mental health strain tied to digital immersion, constant crisis headlines, doom scrolling culture, and heightened public paranoia across political lines. This stage is less about actual policy and more about nervous system strain. This stage is less about actual policy and more about nervous system strain. This is very important because, again, in order to take control of everyone collectively, they need to have a control over the majority collective's nervous system. When populations live in constant alert mode, long-term clarity diminishes. Then we have the Ace of Wands. This is defensive fatigue and guarded society. The archetype here is the wounded warrior and resilience under pressure. The indicators are institutional exhaustion, citizens fatigued but still defensive, high security presence normalized, public tolerance for just in case measures. Again, they need that in place so they can utilize it later. That would be like an Eight of Pentacles approach where they need to continuously work it into normalization, the public tolerance for just in case measures. And governments preparing for potential unrest. The system is tired, but it holds position. Everyone feels stretched. Then we have the Nine of Pentacles. This is self-preservation and private autonomy. We have the archetype of independence, controlled luxury, and gated safety. This stage may look like wealthier populations insulating themselves. Think wealth gap. Growth of gated communities. Because at the Nine of Pentacles stage, this is a stage where we need to separate those who are going to be on the pedestal with the system versus those who are going to be on the ground looking up at the pedestal, because it's one or the other. Before, it was like scattered population, wealth all over the place. They need it to be either you're in it or you're not, because either you're on the pedestal with the system or you're at the bottom and you are subject to needing to praise the pedestal and everyone on it, including the system, and feel like there's no way to opt out. So the wealth gap used to be, or the wealth distribution needed to get to the point where the gap was astronomical. Yes, because it can't be like there's not going to be a middle class. Why not? Because either they're on the pedestal or they're on the ground looking up at the pedestal. That's how they want it to be. Okay, so growth of gated communities, private security expansion, rise of sovereignty movements, and increased interest in alternative finance or decentralization. Anonymity becomes stratified. Those with resources build buffers. Think bunkers. Think like Hollywood, right? Like that's the Nine of Pentacles stage. Politicians making millions while the citizens that they're here to serve literally can't afford gas to get their kids to school, right? That's because they are picking the people that they want on the pedestal side, and everyone else, they don't want to have a chance. They want everyone to be like one world currency, given certain amount of money, certain amount of freedom, certain amount of whatever, and they want it to get to the point where that's just okay with everyone. The Nine of Pentacles is the main point of that separation. Who's on the pedestal, who's not. Then we have the Nine of Cups, which is comfort within the systems. The archetype here is satisfaction and wish fulfillment. At the same time, many experience convenience-driven loyalty. So basically, the Nine of Cups is, now that we've gotten to this stage, can we get everyone happy with crumbs or happy with something that they wouldn't have previously been happy with before we got something passed from the Ace to the 8 and into the 9? Comfort with digital ecosystems, preference for fictionless services, acceptance of trade-offs for ease, and it works well enough mentality. Think of how we viewed the government until recently, I guess. I mean, not that it was working great, but it was this, okay, well, it works well enough until we got pushed into crisis like we're in now, because now, finalization stage of the final layer that they needed, okay, to build up to the devil card, but we'll get there eventually. Not everyone feels oppressed. Some feel comfortable. Those are the Nine of Pentacles that got to the top of the platform. This is important. Nine of Cups shows that systems persist because they provide value. The nines are the peak internalization. Anxiety rises, defenses harden. Some withdraw into anonymity. Others settle into comfort. The system is no longer new. It is lived in. That's why Nine of Pentacles and the nines, we have independence, right? This, what we built and tested, can now stand on its own. And now that it's in place and standing on its own, it's meant to further separate those who are on the platform from those who are not. because if they're on the platform and they just built another layer, they're getting a little higher, aka the gap getting wider and the people on the bottom getting left behind even more as the people on the platforms build themselves up higher. Think billionaires, think politicians. The next stage is the tens. Tens externalize what the nines internalize: completion, overload, or reset. So nines are, it's in place, we're standing 10 toes down, it's not going anywhere. Tens is, hey, we're telling you this to your face, it's in place, it's not going anywhere, and this is what you will accept, and it's too late for you to do anything about it because it's in place, solidified with epoxy on it and seal, so you're not messing it up for them, is essentially this stage. If we look at the nines as a whole, we have the Nine of Swords, the anxiety peak, and mental strain. The examples of this: U.S. adults report highest levels of stress since early pandemic in 2023. Surgeon General warns of youth mental health crisis in 2021. Americans spending record time online in 2023. Cybersecurity threats rising as global conflicts expand online in 2023. Deep fake technology fuels election anxiety in 2024. Then we have the Nine of Wands being defense fatigue and heightened security posture. Capitol security to remain heightened after January 6th attack. This is 2021. New York police increased presence amid rising tensions in 2023. NATO members boost defense spending after Ukraine invasion in 2022. U.S. cities expand surveillance camera networks in 2023. Homeland Security warns of persistent domestic terrorism threat in 2022. The Nine of Pentacles is the private autonomy and self-protection. We have sales of private security services rise as crime concerns grow in 2022. Gold and Bitcoin rally as investors seek safe havens in 2023. Gated communities expand in major U.S. cities in 2022. Americans open offshore accounts at highest rate in years in 2023. Homeschooling rates remain elevated post-pandemic in 2023. We have the Nine of Cups being comfort and convenience normalized. Digital wallet use surpasses cash for everyday purchases in 2022. Streaming services hit record global subscriptions in 2023. Online shopping continues to grow despite economic slowdown in 2023. Contactless payments become standard across retail sector in 2021. Consumer confidence improves as job market stays strong in 2023. This brings us into the tens. Okay, now we're going to get into the Ten of Wands. The Ten of Wands is the overburdened system. The archetype here is carrying too much weight. Structurally, this looks like institutions stretched thin, bureaucracy becoming heavy and inefficient, regulatory overload, enforcement complexity increasing, public servants overwhelmed, infrastructure strain visible. This is essentially the, hey, we know that the layer we put in place is a whole problem and we're standing on business. We know we caused a problem. We're going to let you see us know it's a problem while we still continue to uphold it. That's the Ten of Wands. When systems centralize heavily, they become complex. Complexity creates drag. At this stage, the machine is functional but heavy. Part of the design. Ten of Swords is trust collapse moment. The archetype here is a painful ending, betrayal, and exposure. Think Epstein. It's their way of saying, hey, this is in place whether you like it or not, and matter of fact, we want you to not like it because we need you to not like it so that something that comes later, when it comes, you'll be more adaptable. The indicators of a Ten of Swords are major scandal or data breach, institutional credibility hitting a low point. We've never been lower, I don't think. Public feeling deceived. Check. Sudden policy reversal after backlash or high-profile failure of a control system. The Ten of Swords is dramatic. If something breaks, it breaks visibly. This is the moment people say that was the line. Again, that is also part of the plan because it needs to be put in place so that certain structures hold certain energy, produce certain dynamics, cancel out other dynamics, and put a general awareness in place for the collective. Basically, that can't surprise you that much later to where you give us a hard time because we surprised you with this now. Remember, we're still in the minor arcana. This is just the buildup. This is the buildup of the like the pole of the pedestal. The major arcana is the foundational of the pedestal, right? So we're still in just the buildup. Ten of Pentacles is fully embedded infrastructure. The archetype here is legacy system or generational structure. Basically, it's in place and it's working. This is when digital identity is normalized, financial systems are deeply integrated, data infrastructure is permanent, multiple generations grow up inside of the framework, and the architecture feels immovable. This is in place and it's working, so why would anyone even come after us about it? It's in place because it's part of the pedestal so that the system can be lifted up to a high enough degree. Yes, so technically it's working against us because it's allowing the pedestal to be higher. But as I said earlier, some things will look positive because they need to keep it from collapsing before they're able to get it to the top. Now, spoiler alert, kind of, once the tower is built, the pedestal is in place, and everyone that's supposed to be on it is on it, that's when they shoot out this web, basically, to connect everyone to the source of the system so that nobody can get out of their web. That's the plan, allegedly. So this is kind of, Ten of Pentacles is like, yeah, this is functioning and working great now for you, but watch us use it against you later. But we need it to be in place long term so that you can't question it later, because what do you mean you don't want this in the place in the system now? You liked it for the last 10 years, not knowing then that it was going to be used against you to lock something in place later. Ten of Pentacles, think longevity. Ten of Pentacles is things that they need to have up and running for a certain amount of time so that we'll be less likely to question them later when they flip what was previously working for us to work against us. It was never really working for us. It was just an illusion. It becomes inheritance. The system is no longer new policy, it's environment. Then we go into the Ten of Cups. This is social equilibrium. The archetype here is collective harmony. This can go two ways. Either a balanced adaptation occurs, oversight is moderated, transparency improves, and public trust partially restores, so fulfillment positive, or comfort stabilizes compliance, and the majority feels secure enough not to question. So either it actually is a good thing for a certain amount of time, or they're able to fulfill getting us to accept it anyway. Ten of Cups, and be almost like emotionally on board or appreciative of what is a piece of building up the pedestal, but is meant to look like it's in our favor for a certain amount of time. The Ten of Cups is emotional resolution. Whether healthy or complacent depends on the path taken earlier. So again, some things build up in a positive way and are maintained. Some things build up in a negative way and are maintained. The Ten of Cups is kind of that decision point. Like, are we going to like this now while it looks like it's working in our favor until later it flips against us? Or are we going to not like it and accept it anyway? Basically, Ten of Cups. The tens are completion. These are burden peaks. Trust either collapses or stabilizes. Infrastructure becomes generational. Society decides whether this structure is reformable or permanent. It's a big chunk of building up the system. You can think of the tens almost like all of the other ones built up the pole-like structure, and the tens is what wraps the entire structure as a whole and says, okay, this pole, think of like a telephone pole. Ace through 9 is the chips that are inside the pole. I know that's not really how poles are built, but imagine that they're built up by little chips. And then the chips are wrapped in like a PVC pipe, right? Pretend that that's how you make a pole. I know it's not. But the 10 is the PVC pipe that's going around all the the layers that were already laid in place and tested and foundationally structured to withstand anything. Okay. After that, after it's tested, solidified, withstands internal and external pressure and tests, then we wrap it in PVC. That's the 10. That means, hey, this isn't going anywhere. And if the public were to chip away at part of it, we're chipping away at the PVC and not the actual structure of what they built. They're creating an indestructible uh, pedestal, essentially. Okay, so we have the Ten of Wands, which is institutional overload and system strain. For example, we have the U.S. border officials report record migrant encounters in 2023. Do you see how that set up for what we are facing now? The IRS faces backlog of millions of unprocessed tax returns in 2022. Hospitals overwhelmed as COVID cases surge again in 2022. The FAA systems failure grounds flights nationwide in 2023. U.S. government shutdown looms as lawmakers miss funding deadline in 2023. Ten of Swords is scandal and exposure and credibility shock. We have massive data breach exposes personal information of millions in 2017. Supreme Court overturns Roe versus Wade in landmark decision 2022. Silicon Valley bank collapse triggers global banking fears in 2023. Pentagon Papers leaks suspect arrested in classified documents case in 2023. FTC sues Amazon alleging monopoly power in 2023. Ten of Pentacles is fully embedded infrastructure and generational normalization. The UAE launches first nationwide digital ID system in 2021. India's Aadhaar biometric ID covers more than 1.3 billion people in 2018. China expands use of digital yuan across major cities in 2021. EU digital identity wallet moves forward in 2023. Estonia's digital government model becomes global benchmark in 2020. Do you see how putting something like that in place could serve as a very important pillar moving forward? Then we have 10 of Cups, which is social stabilization and adapted normal. Global travel returns to pre-pandemic levels in 2023. Unemployment falls to historic lows in US in 2024. Consumer spending remains strong despite inflation pressures in 2023. Digital services become everyday utility for a majority of households in 2023. World Bank, do you see why the pandemic was so important? Because it was like we were previously taking steps or leaps before, like towards the surveillance state before 2020, and everything was already in place. Like the bigger picture perspective of the foundation was laid. 2020 was like the system test of a lifetime and the ability to implement a bunch of things at once. A lot of it being the digitalization that was going to really make way for the surveillance state eventually. The pandemic was a huge piece of that, allegedly. World Bank says global economy showing signs of stabilization in 2024, and we didn't really like that, so now we are where we are in 2026. Now we have the minor arcana ending. Now, I know that the character cards are part of the minor arcana, but they're the court. We're separating them differently. Okay, so the minor arcana cycle ends here. Next comes the court. The court is not events. The court is the actors. The page is the test or the wave of the emerging voices. The knights are the aggressive movement. The queens are the strategic consolidation. The kings are the centralized authority. After that, the transition into the major arcana. That's where the archetypal forces become bigger than individual systems. Why? Because at that point, the platform is built up, it's wrapped in PVC, and then the major arcana is the building of the platform that then needs to be strong enough, big enough, wide enough, sturdy enough, and indestructible enough to hold all of the people who are going to be standing on that platform, the billionaires, the politicians, all of that. Because if they were to fall from such a high platform, they'd never get power again, one, and two, that would hurt, and three, that would be embarrassing. They don't want that. So that's what we need to give them, allegedly. Nobody deserves to be placed on a platform above other people, especially not at their expense. The people who are working to serve the people should not be the only ones eating while everyone else starves and blows up. So then we're going to go into the next phase in the next video, which is the court. We're going to start with the pages. The pages is the emergence phase. Pages are early signals inside of a mature system. Why is it a mature system? Because the thing has been built, wrapped in PVC. Now we're on to like the you know how like when you're building the top platform, there's like little things that hold it in place. The court cards are that. They're what holds it in place. They're what we see when we look up at the platform. That's why the court, the characters. They show what's coming next. They're not authority. They are indicators of what? Of the emergence of the big wave within an already matured system. Because when it's gotten to this point, it's gotten from the ace all the way through to the tens, which means it's a matured system. And we are nowhere near the devil card yet, and the devil is where we are, the card that we're entering into. What does that mean? We're working against a very matured system. So we need to completely understand it so that we can dismantle it and actually make America great again and build back something that's sustainable for the average everyday person and not just the ones with billions of dollars in their wallet. I will see you soon for the next part of this. Thank you so much for watching. Again, please remember, I will be making all of these slides available for you to download, dissect, look at, whatever. I'm not doing it until after I'm completed my entire presentation, though. So it will be eventually available. That way you can look through and find additional clues, your own clues, test my research, whatever you want to do. I know it's going to stand up, and I know it's going to show you exactly what's going on. So thank you for watching.